I 36 am feeling sad, lonely, touch-starved, and intimately frustrated in my marriage to my 30F intimate, touch-averse wife. TLDR wife is intimate and touch-averse and possibly on the spectrum. I am feeling sad, lonely, touch-starved, and intimately frustrated. I still love her. We have built a life together as a team over the last 10 years and I don't want to blow that up. My love language is physical touch. I have no idea what to do to feel loved and connected the way I need it. I met my wife in grad school. We really hit it off and we were essentially inseparable from day one. The intercourse at the beginning was decent. It was vanilla but fairly frequent and enjoyable. This actually was a nice change of pace for me because, ironically, my partner for 3+ years before her, my second ever later, was intimate and we hardly ever had intercourse even in the beginning. So, especially compared to that, it was great. My first later was in undergrad with a girl who was raised Catholic, so she wasn't super intimate either due to her religious upbringing. All this to say I've had nothing but unique experiences with every single one of my long-term female partners and their relationship with intercourse. My wife and I have made a great team over the last 10 years and really built a life together. We don't have any children, just a dog. We bought a house together in April of 2020, got an incredible deal and rate. We started out, I was a teacher in the inner city and told her to quit her job her final year of school and I'd support her so she could focus on school, and once she graduated I kept supporting the both of us for 6 more months until she could find a job. I was the primary breadwinner and was supporting her in her career as it did have long-term upwards mobility that would eventually pay off. Around late 2020 or early 2021 was when she started making more than me. By 2022 she made 40% more than me. I quit teaching in the summer of 2022 to get a remote job like hers. She supported the two of us until I got hired in November of 2022 and began working in January of 2023. I had to take an initial pay cut as it was a step back career-wise, but it allows for much more upward growth than teaching ever did. My wife just last week took a new position with a new company that she now makes 150% plus more than I do. She's really doing well for herself and we live a very comfortable and easy lifestyle, a clear contrast to our humble roots, both growing up and as well as starting out together. We both enjoy many of the same kinds of things, including classical music, jazz, world cultures and cuisines, and especially traveling. We absolutely love traveling to Hawaii and go there 2-3 times a year. Over the last 8 years or so though, we've never had intercourse there. Now that we both have remote jobs that pay well, we have been wanting to move there in 2024 if at all possible. I say all of this in this paragraph to show that so many things are good for us and we are a good team that has each other's backs. I do love her a lot and we've really invested into each other. My wife is quite the introvert and doesn't mind alone time. She's a big video gamer and will spend a lot of time alone playing video games. She never plays them online with others though. She also likes to play mindless video games from her childhood over and over. She's pretty quirky and socially awkward too. She also suffers from a lot of social anxiety and tells me how draining it is when she's around a bunch of people and that she worries she is weird around them. Sometimes I think she may be slightly on the spectrum, and while I'm not a trained psychologist, I was a teacher for 15 years and interacted every single day with numerous students that were on the spectrum. After the honeymoon phase of our relationship ended with my wife, the intercourse lost its frequency and she seemed less and less open to it. I have always initiated intercourse every single time, no exaggeration, in our 10 years together. I tried everything I could to see what turned her on or could get her going. I bought a variety of intercourse toys, tried to watch porn, had conversations to see if she had any turn-ons or fantasies. Nothing. She basically told me that it gave her anxiety thinking I was trying to initiate intercourse or something I was doing may lead to intercourse. This is when alarm bells went off in my head about the possibility she was intimate or had intimate trauma. Turns out, it's both. More on that in a moment. She became less and less interested in physical touch and cuddling. She would tell me I was smothering her. She felt smothered literally, not figuratively, when we cuddled. Physical touch is my love language, so I feel sad and empty inside without it and without hugs, cuddling, etc. She never sits beside me on the couch or holds my hand or anything. Physical touch doesn't do anything for her and she doesn't crave it, not even a hug. That's hard for me to comprehend, but I do know touch-averse people are out there. I also think her hesitancy to physical touch is due to the fact that it could sometimes lead to intercourse, which gave her great anxiety as I mentioned above. So I stopped seeking any kind of physical touch from her whatsoever, especially since it gives her anxiety that it could lead to intercourse. We do still share a bed, a large king bed which we sleep on far opposite sides of. During the early part of the pandemic we hit a really rough patch. I was working very long hours in a very stressful and draining job and she was alone working from home. I'd come home and would be emotionally and physically drained. I wasn't a good partner because I wasn't emotionally available and I also didn't feel connected to her. She ended up having an emotional affair mostly via telephone text with a coworker that she knew from when they worked together in person. It was never intimate though. At the very same time, and apart from the emotional affair she had, I was already feeling unloved and undesired. Not having intercourse with me felt like I was being rejected and contributed to the feelings of not being loved or wanted and not intimately desired. It really hurt. Further, intercourse is how I connect emotionally with a partner, how I make myself vulnerable, how I express love. It really opens me up and makes me comfortable in being emotionally open to connect. However, when I expressed interest in intercourse, she would tell me to go watch porn or masturbate, and when I told her it wasn't nearly as fulfilling or good, she truly could not comprehend that. She has told me that she somewhat views me, but I think she means although intimates as Neanderthal cavemen, that we are motivated by our very basic primitive needs. This made me so sad inside. We decided to go to couples counseling, which we were in for a year. We worked through many things including her emotional affair, and I forgave her. During our time in couples therapy, we confirmed our suspicions that she was intimate and touch-averse. She does claim to be romantic, though. I understand you can have romance without intercourse, but it's hard for me if it's never going to happen. In counseling we discussed her childhood, which was chaotic and emotionally abusive but never physically intimately. We also discussed her one intimate trauma she had experienced, which also I knew the details of already, which her one intimate partner immediately previous to me continued to have intercourse with her even though she revoked consent midway through intercourse. I have always felt awful that happened to her and made me want to go beat the dude up and cut his junk off. I can understand how this could contribute to someone having issues with intercourse, but in our couples therapy, it was clear the issue was far deeper than that. My wife says that intercourse does feel good in the moment, but it's nothing she ever craves. She doesn't even masturbate, and she's more of a get to orgasm and get it over with kind of person. She never wants to draw it out ever. She also hates receiving and giving oral intercourse, so my options in giving her pleasure are limited to penetration while she uses a magic wand vibrator to climax. That's all intercourse has been, is her lying on her back using her vibrator while I hope to get off before she does, because once she gets off it's over. My wife also refuses to give oral intercourse in addition to refusing to receive it. It makes me sad because I love giving pleasure and it makes me happy and feel connected to my partner. Since my wife expressed that intercourse did feel good to her, or at least didn't feel bad, our counselor suggested we still have intercourse anyways and kind of make a habit out of it, and hopefully that would improve it along with going on regular dates, etc. I couldn't get on board with this. I feel like consent should be enthusiastic. I don't want someone having intercourse with me just cause, especially if they are intimate and don't really want it or crave it. I do understand some intimates are not intercourse averse. I feel my wife is somewhere in the middle, but I just can't do it with someone who doesn't actually desire it. So I refused. I actually stopped having intercourse altogether with my wife in early 2022 because I just didn't think it was right. And she never wanted it in the first place or really said much that I stopped. It's not like we were having much anyway at that point, maybe 4 times a year. At some point in all of this, my wife then suggested maybe if I lost weight that she would feel more intimate attraction to me. I should have known better, but I embarked on a nearly year-long weight loss journey in which I lost 65 points. It was a lot of work and I got down to a healthy BMI. Nothing changed with her intimate desire. At this point not only was I feeling so lonely, unwanted, and unloved due to the lack of intercourse and physical affection, not even cuddling. I know that since she is a touch-averse intimate, that was not her fault or her intention to make me feel that way, but it is how I felt. I finally also got so intimately frustrated that I asked to go outside of our relationship for intercourse and my physical needs, which she agreed to. This was originally suggested in counseling by our counselor to see if she was open to it, but at the time while she was, I was not. I had my own kind of internal crisis where I've never had an intimately satisfying relationship. As I mentioned at the beginning, my first later was in undergrad and was raised Catholic, so she had her own reservations with intercourse. My second later was with a person who identified as intimate, and now my third later with the person who is now my wife also turned out to be intimate. I felt like I wasted my 20s and half of my 30s having very little intercourse and not having a normal, sorry for using that word, relationship. My wife agreed to allow me to go outside of our marriage for my physical needs. It didn't seem to faze her as she had suggested it a number of times in the past. She just asked that I didn't tell her about anything. She didn't want to know any details. So, I ended up finding someone to meet my physical needs with, and it was amazing. It was the first female I had been with that I felt like that had an intercourse drive, and it was a very high drive that matched mine. The intercourse was far from vanilla too, as we both were kink positive and got to explore so many things together that way too. It was all incredibly satisfying. The person was also super into cuddling and non-intimate touch affection too. It was also eye-opening for me for all I was missing out on with my wife, both with intimate and non-intimate physical touch affection. It was so confirming to me not only what I had been missing out on but how much it can deepen a relationship and its connection between the two people. It really opened up a can of worms for me. On the other hand, and unsurprisingly, I was also becoming emotionally attached to this person due to the intercourse, physical affection, and vulnerability, etc. After a year, I ended it with that person, even though it was the best intercourse and physical affection of my life, because I feared it would blow up my marriage. I am now back to my original loneliness, emptiness, and intimate frustration. I don't know what to do. As I mentioned early in my story, I love my wife, we are an incredible team and have built an incredible life together. We want to move to Hawaii together. I sacrificed growing in a career so that she could for hers. I feel like I've invested so much into her and it has finally paid off and she's invested into me too. I'm now only a year into my new career and as I mentioned before it was a step back pay-wise in order to a future upward mobility. I know it would break her heart if I left her and mine too. I don't want to blow our lives up and I don't want to start all over either. At the same time, I feel sad, lonely, empty, touch-starved, and in need of non-intimate touch, i.e. cuddling and intercourse as well. It's hard for me to go out and have no strings attached intercourse with someone and I end up getting attached, so I don't think it's a good option anymore. It makes me sad I can't have physical affection, i.e. cuddling or intercourse, and the connection that comes with it all in my own marriage. My wife's intimacy and touch aversion is not her fault. Feeling really down right now about it all because so many things are actually good. Thanks for listening and I welcome your advice. Wow, you really seem like a stand-up husband and person in general. Open to communication, therapy, vulnerability, compromise and growth. From your take here, you have done all the things you could do. Have you considered that your wife is just one of the great loves of your life? Maybe you grew to this point together, and this is where you need to be to separate. You can go find a different love, not better or worse, but different and satisfying. I wholeheartedly believe that we have multiple great loves in life, both platonic and romantic. She isn't dependent on you, you have no children and you are both financially alright. She had an emotional affair while you were working too hard and not being a good partner. See how you take the blame for her actions right there? You don't have to do that. Splitting up shouldn't be that difficult. I am 38F married and hover over the spectrum. From your description I believe you would be able to have an amicable divorce. I don't think she is going to fight you at all and that may be surprising and I would think about how that might feel. I want to add that I have felt that anxiety where touch may lead to intercourse and I was going to have to do it. It's awful. Also for the person who loves you and wants to be intimate but you are feeling repulsed by the thought. This happened at the end of 2 longish term relationships where I had fallen out of love with the person, so intercourse was off the table for me emotionally. I'm like you with touch and intimacy but in general the partnership and friendship were still good. It's a weird phase at the end when there isn't toxic behavior involved. Set yourself free, brother.